So in this lesson, we're going to look at some topologies, and some topologies are not some things that you are going to use a lot today, but they may be part of your exam, so you need to know what they are and what they do. And this one is an example, IBSS. And the reason why it's described is because it was one of the first topologies described in the 802.11 standard in 1997. And that stands for Independent Basic Service Set. So what does that mean? Well, think about it. If you want to have two devices communicate with one another, two devices, one laptop and another laptop, not an access point, two laptops. Well, the easiest way is to just put them in the same space and then voila, they send waves to each other and they communicate. And that's an independent basic service set. They don't rely on anything outside, they just talk to each other. A basic set is the area where you can provide service, and that service, of course, is Wi-Fi communication. So as long as these two laptops are in the same area and they can talk to each other because they are in range, they are forming a basic service set, and because they don't depend on anything else, they are independent. Perfect. That was described in 802.11. It's still in the standard today, right? But it's not used a lot. Why? Well, because things get a little bit complicated as you grow. You may still read some documentations from the 2000 years where we describe how to create a peer-to-peer communication or an ad hoc network. It's the same thing. IBSS, peer-to-peer, ad hoc are all the same modes, the same descriptions. You can still create those type of networks in some operating systems today. Some other operating systems just got rid of them completely. And the reason why is because if you have two devices you communicate easily, what happens if you want to have three? Well, then the third one has to communicate with the first two. And what about 4? What about 5? And what about 6? Well, the more you add devices, the more you have to repeat the same rule. You have to have a peer-to-peer communication from one to every other of them and every other of the others. So that becomes complicated because everybody will be on the same channel, probably, but then you have to decide who sends and when. And that's nowhere to decide because there is no hierarchy of who decides what. Everybody talks whenever they want. So there are some systems to make it work, but it doesn't scale well. As soon as you have more than 8 to 10 devices, management becomes complicated. And what happens if the first guy, the first station leaves the area? Who is deciding on who communicates to whom? You see, it's not very practical. So IBSS was used in the early 2000s. Today, it's probably not something you want to use anymore. So it doesn't scale well beyond 8 to 10 devices. So that's not something you would use today anymore. So you will not use IBSS except if you use an old operating system or if you have good reason to create this kind of peer-to-peer network.